The mining facility looked empty, but Lyra moved carefully. She held her small knife in front of her. The building had broken windows and a door hanging off its hinges. Inside, old machines sat covered in dust. Lyra's light beam cut through the darkness, showing tables and chairs knocked over. People had left in a hurry. Her food and water supplies were low. Lyra had only eaten half a food bar since the crash. Her stomach hurt from hunger. She searched through cabinets and drawers, hoping to find something useful. Most were empty. In one, she found some tools. In another, she found a map of the facility. The map showed a bigger building nearby. Main control was written on it. As Lyra studied the map, she heard something, a soft sound like breathing. She turned off her light and listened. Yes, someone or something was in the room with her. She could feel a presence through her empathic ability, a mind watching her, thinking about her. "I know you're there," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "Show yourself." A figure stepped out from behind a large machine. It looked female and almost human, but not quite. She had pale skin and white hair. Her eyes were too large, and she had a ridge of small bumps along her forehead. She wore clothes made from scraps of old uniforms and animal skins. "You're new," the woman said. "Fresh drop. How long have you been here?" "1 day," Lyra answered, still holding her knife. "Who are you?" "My name is Octavia. I've been here for 7 years." She looked at Lyra's knife and smiled. "That won't help you much. Not against what's out there." Lyra lowered the knife but did not put it away. "What is out there?" Octavia sat on a dusty desk. "Monsters. That's what I call them. Bioweapons left over from the war. The Razorbacks you've already met. Then there are the Whispers. They look almost human but can hurt you with their minds. And the worst ones, the Harvesters, big insect things that collect other creatures for something. I don't know what they do with them, but no one ever comes back." "How have you survived so long?" Lyra asked. "I know their territories. I know when to hide and when to move. And I'm half human, half Solari. My mixed blood makes me less interesting to them." Octavia looked at Lyra closely. "You're Terrian. Your people helped create some of these monsters." Lyra looked down. "My people threw me away. They said I was impure. Join the club," Octavia said with a bitter laugh. "This whole planet is for things people want to forget about." Lyra checked her mask. "I have 63 hours of air filtration left. After that, I know where to find more filters," Octavia said. "There's an old emergency supply depot on the north side of the facility. But it's in Whisper territory, dangerous." "I'll die if I don't get more filters," Lyra said. Octavia nodded. "Rest first. Eat something if you have food. We'll go when it's light." Lyra shared her last food bar with Octavia. As they ate, Octavia told her more about the planet. "This isn't just a dumping ground. It's a laboratory. Someone comes here sometimes, watches how the monsters develop and change." "Who?" Lyra asked. "I don't know for sure. I've seen ships, small ones. They drop things. New monsters. They take samples sometimes." Octavia frowned. "I stay far away when they come." "Is there any way off this planet?" Lyra asked. "There's an old communication tower about 3 days' walk from here. It might still work. I've never tried it. Too far into Harvester territory." Lyra thought about this, a way to call for help. But who would come? Not her people. Still, it was better than slowly dying here. "We should try it." Octavia looked surprised. "You're brave for someone who just got here." She shrugged. "Maybe too brave, but okay. First the filters, then we can talk about the tower." They slept in shifts. Lyra took the first watch. As Octavia slept, Lyra tried to sort through the feelings coming from outside. So many minds, all strange and twisted. The Terrian scientists had made these creatures to be weapons. Now they lived here, evolving in ways no one had planned. In the morning, they left for the supply depot. The landscape was even more desolate in daylight. Twisted metal structures rose from the ground. Old mining equipment lay abandoned. The yellow fog was thinner today, but still toxic. "Stay close," Octavia whispered. Whispers hunt by sound and movement. They moved slowly, hiding behind rocks and debris. Twice they had to stop and lie flat as flying creatures passed overhead. Lyra saw them clearly the second time. They had bat-like wings but humanoid bodies. Their faces had no eyes, only large ears. They made clicking sounds as they flew. "Echo hunters," Octavia explained. "They work for the Whispers sometimes, finding food for them." It took 3 hours to reach the supply depot. The building was small and half buried in the ground. The door was locked, but Octavia knew how to bypass it. Inside, they found shelves of emergency supplies. Most were gone, but in a back corner, Octavia found a box of air filters. "These will fit your mask," she said, handing 3 to Lyra. "Each is good for about 72 hours, so 9 more days of air." Lyra took the filters with relief. "Thank you." As they were preparing to leave, a sound came from outside. A high-pitched whine, almost too high to hear. Lyra felt pain in her head. Through her empathic sense, she felt alien minds approaching. Cold minds. "Hungry minds," whispers, Octavia hissed. "They know we're here. We need to run." They burst out of the depot and ran for the nearest cover, a fallen mining machine. The pain in Lyra's head grew worse. She saw them then. 3 tall, thin figures walking slowly toward them. They looked almost human but stretched too tall. Their skin was gray and they had no mouths. They communicated by sending pain directly into your mind. "Don't look at them," Octavia warned. "They get in easier if you look." The pain was becoming unbearable. Lyra felt like her head would explode. But then she had an idea. If they could push thoughts into her mind, maybe she could push back. She focused on her empathic ability, the thing that got her exiled. She gathered her own pain and fear and pushed it outward toward the whispers. The effect was immediate. The whispers stopped walking. They seemed confused. The pain in Lyra's head lessened. She pushed harder, sending all her negative feelings at them. The whispers backed away, then turned and left. Octavia stared at Lyra. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," Lyra said, breathing hard. "I just pushed back." "That's why your people threw you away," Octavia said. "You can talk to the monsters. That makes you dangerous." They made their way back to the mining facility. Lyra felt drained. Using her ability took a lot of energy. But she had learned something important. She could defend herself. Maybe even control some of the creatures. Back at their shelter, Octavia unfolded a crude map she had made. "The communication tower is here," she said, pointing to a spot marked with an X. 3 days walking, through harvester territory. "What are the harvesters like?" Lyra asked. "Big, insect-like. 6 legs, 4 arms, they collect things, people, animals, even other monsters. They take them back to their hive." Octavia's face darkened. "They took my friend Kira 3 years ago. I never saw her again. Why do they collect things?" "I don't know for sure. I've seen their hive from a distance. It's like they're building something big, something alive." Octavia rolled up the map. "We should rest today. Start for the tower tomorrow." That night, as they prepared to sleep, Lyra asked, "Do you think anyone will hear us if we use the tower?" "Maybe," Octavia said. "Ships pass through this system sometimes, traders, explorers. If we're lucky, someone good will hear us. And if we're not lucky?" Octavia didn't answer for a long time. "Then someone bad will hear us and things will get worse." The next morning, they set out for the communication tower. They carried what supplies they could find. Food was scarce, but Octavia knew which plants were safe to eat. They walked all day, staying hidden as much as possible. As the sun set, they made camp in the shell of an old transport vehicle. Lyra changed her mask filter, carefully storing the used one. It still had some life left in an emergency. On the second day, they entered harvester territory. The landscape changed. Strange organic structures appeared, like giant honeycombs made of a hard, resin-like material. The ground was covered in a slick, oily substance. "They're secretions," Octavia explained. "They mark their territory this way." They moved more carefully now, hiding whenever they heard sounds. Twice they saw harvesters in the distance. They were as Octavia described, large insect creatures with multiple limbs. They moved with surprising grace for their size. By late afternoon, they could see the communication tower on the horizon. It was tall and thin, rising above the barren landscape like a needle. Lyra felt hope for the first time since her exile. That hope died quickly. As they approached a ridge overlooking a valley, they saw dozens of harvesters below. They were gathered around something big, something they were building. "Get down," Octavia whispered, pulling Lyra to the ground. From their hiding place, they watched the harvesters work. They were constructing something massive. It looked almost like a ship, but organic, growing rather than being built. "What is that?" Lyra asked quietly. "I don't know," Octavia said. "But it's bad. Very bad." A sound came from behind them. They turned to see a harvester standing there, its multiple eyes fixed on them. Before they could run, it sprayed something from glands in its neck. The mist settled over them, and Lyra felt her body go numb. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. The small pod tumbled through space. Inside, Lyra lay unconscious, her blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. Her people, the Terrians, had drugged her and put her in this escape pod. They did not want her anymore. She was different. Her body had changed. Now she could feel the emotions of other living things. The Terrians said this was bad. They called it genetic impurity. Lyra's four-fingered hands twitched as the pod entered the atmosphere of Nexus 9. This planet was not a nice place. The Terrians used it to dump things they created but did not want anymore. Dangerous things. Monster things. The pod shook violently as it fell. Warning lights flashed red. The computer voice said, "Impact imminent." Brace for crash. The pod hit the ground hard. Metal bent. Sparks flew. Lyra's head hit the wall, but the crash foam saved her life. She did not wake up right away. For hours she lay still as strange noises came from outside. Scratching sounds. Hissing sounds. Things were out there, curious about the pod. When Lyra finally opened her eyes, she felt pain all over. Her head hurt the most. She touched her forehead and felt sticky blood. The pod's lights flickered, barely working. She looked around, confused at first. Where was she? Why was she here? Then the memories came back. The test results. The council meeting. The guards grabbing her. Someone saying, "She is no longer Tyrian. Send her away." Lyra tried to stand but fell back down. Her legs were weak from the drugs. She crawled to the control panel. Most screens were broken, but one still worked. It showed her where she was. Nexus 9. Her heart beat faster. Everyone knew about Nexus 9. It was where the worst creatures from the Great Stellar War were sent. Bioweapons too dangerous to destroy. The Terrians had sent her to die. The air sensor beeped. The message was clear. The air outside was toxic. She could not breathe it. Lyra found the emergency kit and pulled out a rebreather mask. The display showed it had 72 hours of clean air. After that, she would die. She checked the pod systems. The engine was dead. The communication array was broken. The food supply was small, maybe enough for 5 days. The water recycler still worked, at least. Lyra sat on the floor and cried. Her people had thrown her away like trash. After some time, Lyra wiped her tears. Crying would not help. She needed to think. Maybe there was something on this planet she could use. An old mining station. A communication tower. Anything to call for help. But who would help her? The Terrians had cast her out. No one else knew she was here. As the day turned to night, the sounds outside grew louder. Something big circled the pod. Its claws scraped against the metal hull, making horrible screeching noises. Lyra huddled in the corner, trying to be quiet. Her new ability, the thing that got her thrown away, now filled her mind with feelings from outside. Hunger, curiosity, predatory instincts. So many minds out there in the dark, all dangerous. The night seemed to last forever. Lyra did not sleep. How could she? Every noise made her jump. Every scrape against the hull made her heart race. When morning finally came, the creatures moved away. Lyra looked out the small window. The landscape was barren. Rocks and dirt stretched as far as she could see. Toxic fog hung in the air, yellow and thick. Lyra knew she could not stay in the pod forever. Her supplies would run out. Her mask would stop working. She had to find help or a way off this planet. She gathered what she could carry. A small knife, a light, some food bars, a water bottle, the medical kit. She put on the rebreather mask and checked that it was sealed properly. The pod door was jammed from the crash. Lyra had to kick it many times before it opened with a groan. Hot, sulfur-smelling air rushed in. Even with the mask, her eyes watered. The mask's filter would clean the air, but only for 3 days. After that, her lungs would burn from the inside. Lyra stepped onto the alien soil. Her boots sank slightly in the soft ground. She looked around, trying to decide which way to go. In the distance, she saw something that looked like buildings. Maybe an old mining facility. It was better than nothing. She started walking. The gravity here was stronger than what she was used to. Each step took effort. The sun, smaller and redder than the one her world orbited, gave little warmth. Lyra felt cold despite the protective suit she wore. As she walked, Lyra felt something new. Her empathic ability was picking up signals from all around. Most were simple, animal-like minds, hungry, territorial, hunting or hiding. But there was something else, something different. A mind more like her own, thinking complex thoughts. It was far away, but it was there. Was someone else trapped on this planet? A sound made her stop. A low growling came from behind a rock formation to her right. Lyra froze. Through her empathic sense, she felt a predator's mind. It had noticed her. It was curious. Hungry. She slowly reached for her knife, though she knew it would do little against whatever waited there. The creature emerged from behind the rocks. It looked like a wolf, but wrong. Metal spines protruded from its back. Its eyes glowed red. Implants were visible under its skin. This was no natural animal. This was a bioweapon, a razorback, created to kill enemy soldiers during the war. Lyra backed away slowly. The razorback growled again, showing metal teeth. More growls answered from behind other rocks. There were more of them, a pack. Lyra felt their hunger, their excitement at finding prey. She could not fight them. She could not outrun them. But maybe she could use her ability, the thing that got her exiled, the thing the Terrians feared. Lyra focused on the lead razorback. She pushed her consciousness toward it, trying to connect with its mind. At first there was resistance. The creature's brain had been modified to resist psychic influence. But Lyra pushed harder. Contact. The razorback whined in confusion. Lyra sent feelings of fear, of danger. She made the creature think something bigger and more dangerous was coming. The razorback backed away, then turned and ran. The others followed their leader. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Using her ability drained her energy. But it had worked. She was alive. For now. She got back to her feet and continued toward the distant buildings. As she walked, she wondered if there were other abilities she did not know about yet. Things the Terrians feared. Things that might help her survive. The sun was setting when Lyra finally reached the edge of what had once been a mining facility. Most buildings were in ruins. Machines lay abandoned, covered in dust and corrosion. But one structure still looked somewhat intact. It might provide shelter for the night. Lyra checked her mask. The display showed 65 hours of filtration left.
Time was already running out.
Lieutenant Samantha Reeves frowned at the control panel of her small shuttle. The long-range explorer vessel Artemis had picked up a strange signal 3 days ago. Captain Laura Bell had ordered Samantha to check it out despite the risks. The signal came from Nexus 9, a planet marked in their database as contaminated forbidden. Any change in the signal? Captain Bell's voice came through the comm system. No, ma'am, Samantha replied. Still the same pattern. Definitely artificial, but I can't tell what it means. Remember your orders, Lieutenant. Observe only. Do not land on that planet. Yes, ma'am. Samantha switched off the comm and sighed. She tucked a strand of red hair behind her ear and studied the readouts again. The signal was weak but regular. Someone or something was down there calling for help. Samantha had joined Earth's Space Exploration Corps to make a difference, to help people. And now someone needed help, but her orders said to ignore them. It didn't feel right. She made her decision quickly. The captain wouldn't check in again for at least 6 hours. Enough time to go down, check the source of the signal, and return to orbit. Samantha plotted a course for the planet's surface, aiming for the signal's origin. As the shuttle entered the atmosphere, warning lights flashed across her console. The toxic atmosphere created interference. The shuttle shook violently. Samantha fought with the controls, but it was too late. The engines failed. The shuttle was going down. Mayday, mayday, she called into the comm. Engine failure. Forced landing on Nexus 9 coordinates. The comm went dead as the shuttle plummeted toward the surface. Samantha managed to slow their descent enough to survive the crash. The shuttle hit the ground hard, skidding across rocky terrain before coming to a stop. The impact threw her against her restraints, leaving painful bruises across her chest and shoulders. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Damage reports scrolled across her screen. The engines were dead. Life support was failing. The comm system was offline. Samantha pulled on an environment suit and helmet from the emergency locker. The suit would protect her from the toxic atmosphere, but its air supply would only last about 3 days. She gathered what supplies she could carry. A medkit, emergency rations, a water purifier, a handheld scanner, and most importantly, a pulse rifle. Captain Bell had insisted all shuttles carry weapons after what happened to the Newton expedition last year. Samantha checked the scanner. The signal was still active, coming from somewhere to the north. According to the readings, it was about 12 hours of walking distance. She had no choice but to try to reach it. The landscape outside was barren and hostile. Rocks and dirt stretched in all directions. A yellow fog hung in the air, obscuring visibility beyond a few hundred meters. Samantha set out toward the signal, keeping her rifle ready. She walked for hours. The planet's gravity was slightly stronger than Earth's, making each step take more effort. The scanner beeped occasionally, confirming she was still on the right track. As darkness fell, strange sounds echoed across the wasteland. Howls, clicks, scraping noises. Samantha found shelter in a small cave and tried to rest. Morning brought new challenges. Flying creatures circled overhead, forcing Samantha to hide several times. Her scanner picked up movement all around her. This planet was far from dead. It was teeming with life, just not the kind you wanted to meet. By midday, the scanner showed she was getting close to the signal. It came from just beyond a ridge ahead. Samantha climbed carefully, staying low to avoid being seen. At the top, she looked down into a valley and gasped. Below was some kind of hive. Large insect-like creatures moved around structures made of a resin-like material. In the center was something massive. It looked almost like a ship, but organic, growing rather than being built. Near the edge of the hive was a cage made of the same resin material. Inside were two figures. Samantha adjusted her helmet's optics to zoom in. One figure appeared humanoid, but definitely not human. Blue skin, 4 fingers on each hand. The other looked almost human, but had unusual features. Both were alive, but not moving much. The signal was coming from somewhere in the hive. Samantha had to get closer, but charging in would be suicide. She needed a plan. She watched the hive for hours, noting the creatures' patterns. They seemed to be most active during daylight. As evening approached, their movement slowed. Samantha waited until the sun set before making her move. She circled around to the side nearest the cage, using the growing darkness as cover. The insect creatures, harvesters according to her scanner's tentative identification, had reduced in number. Most had retreated into the main structure. She approached the cage carefully, weapon ready. The 2 prisoners saw her coming. The blue-skinned one pressed against the resin bars, watching Samantha with a mix of fear and hope. The almost human one made a warning gesture, pointing to something behind Samantha. Samantha turned just in time to see a harvester emerge from behind a structure. It was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with multiple limbs and a hard exoskeleton. It made a clicking sound and moved toward her with surprising speed. Samantha fired her pulse rifle. The energy blast hit the creature's thorax, making it stumble. But it didn't go down. She fired again, aiming for what looked like its head. This time it fell, twitching. The noise had attracted attention. More clicking sounds came from the main structure. Samantha ran to the cage and examined it. The bars were too strong to break, but the door had a simple organic latch. She broke it open with the butt of her rifle. "Quickly," she said to the prisoners. "More are coming." The blue-skinned alien stared at her in shock. You're helping us?" "That's the plan," Samantha said. "Can you both walk?" The almost human one nodded. "I'm Octavia. This is Lyra. And yes, we can walk, but not fast. The paralysis spray hasn't fully worn off." Samantha looked back at the main structure. Shapes were moving inside. "We need to go now. Head for that ridge. I'll cover you." They made their escape as the first harvesters emerged from the hive. Samantha fired her rifle, not to kill but to slow them down. The energy blasts created confusion among the creatures, giving the trio time to reach the ridge and disappear into the darkness beyond. They didn't stop running until they were far from the hive. Finally, in the shelter of a rock formation, they paused to rest. Samantha checked her scanner. No immediate pursuit, but they weren't safe yet. Lyra watched Samantha with curious eyes. "Why did you help us? You don't know us. You needed help," Samantha said simply. "That's enough reason." "Not for most people," Octavia said bitterly. "Not on this planet." "I'm not from this planet," Samantha replied. "I'm human. From Earth." "Earth," Lyra repeated the word. "I've heard of it. A developing world. Not very advanced." Samantha smiled inside her helmet. "Advanced enough to rescue you." "Fair point," Lyra admitted. "But why are you here? This planet is forbidden." Samantha explained about the signal, the crash, and her mission. "I was supposed to observe only, not land. My captain will be furious." "The signal must be coming from the communication tower," Octavia said. That's where we were trying to go when the harvesters caught us. How far is this tower? Samantha asked. About a day's walk, Octavia replied. But it's dangerous. The harvesters will be looking for us. We need to try, Samantha said. My shuttle is wrecked. That tower might be our only way to call for help. They rested until morning, taking turns keeping watch. Samantha shared her rations with the others. As they ate, Lyra told her story. How her people had exiled her for developing empathic abilities. How they had dumped her on this planet to die. Your own people did that to you? Samantha was shocked. Just because you developed a new ability? Lyra nodded sadly. The Terrians fear change. They call it genetic impurity. They believe our species should remain exactly as it has been for thousands of years. That's barbaric, Samantha said. Your people wouldn't do this? Lyra asked. No, Samantha said firmly. Humans have made many mistakes, but we've learned that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. On Earth, someone like you would be valued, not exiled. Lyra seemed to consider this. The Terrian Council said all younger species were savage and primitive. Samantha laughed. Maybe we were once, but we've grown up a lot in the last few centuries. As dawn broke, they set out for the communication tower. Octavia led the way, knowing which areas to avoid. Samantha kept her scanner active, watching for signs of pursuit. Lyra stayed close to Samantha, still weak from the harvester's paralysis spray. Your empathic abilities, Samantha said as they walked. How do they work? I can sense the emotions and basic thoughts of other living things, Lyra explained. Sometimes I can influence them, push them away or calm them down. That's amazing, Samantha said. Can you read my thoughts now? Lyra shook her head. Not clearly. I get feelings mostly. You're concerned, determined, a little afraid, but controlling it well. You care about others deeply. Samantha was impressed. That's pretty accurate. I've never met a human before, Lyra continued. Your mind feels different from the Terrians, more open, less rigid. They walked in silence for a while. The landscape gradually changed. The ground became harder, more rocky. The yellow fog thinned slightly. In the distance, they could see the communication tower rising like a needle against the sky. The harvesters climbed the tower, their many legs finding easy holds on the metal structure. Inside the control room, Samantha, Lyra, and Octavia worked quickly to build a barricade. They pushed old furniture against the door. Samantha checked her rifle again. The power cell showed only 18% charge remaining. How long until your ship responds? Octavia asked, her voice tight with fear. I don't know, Samantha admitted. Hours, maybe, if they get the signal at all. The first harvester reached the window, its insect-like face pressed against the glass, multiple eyes blinking. It tapped the window with a claw, testing its strength. The glass won't hold them for long, Octavia said. Lyra stood in the center of the room, her eyes closed in concentration. I'm trying to connect with them, but their minds are strange, not like animals. Not like people either. More like a network. A cracking sound came from the window. The harvester's claw had made a small break in the glass. More harvesters appeared, gathering around the window and the door. We need another way out, Samantha said, looking around the room. She spotted a hatch in the ceiling. There. It might lead to the upper levels of the tower. Octavia dragged a table beneath the hatch. Samantha climbed up and pushed. The hatch opened with a groan of rusty metal. She pulled herself up, then reached down to help the others. Just as Lyra, the last one, climbed through, the window shattered. Harvesters poured into the control room below. Samantha slammed the hatch shut and looked for something to block it with. There was nothing. They were in a narrow maintenance shaft that ran up the center of the tower. Metal ladders led both up and down. Up or down? Octavia asked. Samantha considered. Down, we need to get away from the tower. Find somewhere to hide until my ship comes. They began to descend. The shaft was dark, lit only by Samantha's helmet light. Below, the shaft seemed to continue past the ground level into the earth itself. I didn't know the tower went underground, Octavia said. Neither did I, Samantha replied. But it might be our only option. Above them, the hatch burst open. Harvester claws appeared, reaching down. They began to descend after the trio. Hurry, Samantha urged. They climbed down faster, passing the ground level and continuing into the darkness below. The shaft opened into a larger tunnel. Old lights flickered on as they entered, triggered by their movement. The tunnel stretched ahead, disappearing into darkness. What is this place? Lyra asked, looking around in wonder. Some kind of underground facility, Samantha said, checking her scanner. It's huge. They moved deeper into the tunnel, hoping to lose the harvesters. The sounds of pursuit faded behind them. The tunnel branched several times. Samantha used her scanner to mark their path, creating a digital map as they went. After walking for nearly an hour, they came to a massive door. It was partially open, just enough for them to squeeze through. Beyond was a sight that made them all stop in shock. A vast underground chamber spread before them. It was filled with strange equipment and large, transparent tanks. Inside the tanks floated creatures in various stages of development. Some looked like razorbacks, others like whispers. Still others were forms they had never seen before. A laboratory, Samantha whispered, moving closer to examine the tanks. Someone's been creating these creatures. The Terrians, Lyra said, her voice hollow. My people did this. Octavia moved to a computer terminal. It was still active, displaying data in a language she couldn't read. Can you understand this? She asked Lyra. Lyra approached the terminal. Yes, it's Terrian script. She began to read, her expression growing more troubled with each passing moment. This is horrible. My people have been using this planet as a testing ground. They've been creating biological weapons here for decades. Weapons for what? Samantha asked. Lyra continued reading. For war. A war they're planning to start. She looked up, her face pale. Against humans. Samantha felt cold. What? The Terrian High Council sees humans as a threat. Your species is expanding too quickly, developing technology too fast. They fear you'll eventually challenge Terrian dominance in this sector of space. Lyra pointed to the screen. These creatures are being designed specifically to target human weaknesses. But the harvesters, the other monsters we've seen, they've been here for years, Octavia said. Long before I arrived. Those were from the last war, Lyra explained. My people never destroyed them. Instead, they've been studying how they adapt and evolve, using that data to create new, more effective weapons. She pointed to a different section of the screen. This mentions something called Project Ascension. It's their main initiative. Samantha checked her scanner. We should keep moving. The harvesters might still be following us. They continued through the laboratory, passing more tanks and equipment. In one section, they found human DNA samples labeled with dates and locations. In another, they discovered medical data on human test subjects. They've been abducting humans, Samantha said, her voice tight with anger. Experimenting on them. My people told us that humans were dangerous primitives, Lyra said. They never mentioned any of this. They reached another door at the far end of the laboratory. It led to a tunnel that sloped downward. The air grew warmer as they descended. Strange sounds echoed from below. Clicking, scraping, organic squelching noises. The tunnel opened into an even larger chamber. Here the artificial gave way to the organic. The walls were covered in the same resin-like material they had seen in the harvester hive. But this was much more extensive, more organized. We've found it, Octavia whispered. The main harvester hive. The chamber was huge, extending farther than they could see. Harvesters moved everywhere, working on various tasks. In the center was the massive organic structure they had glimpsed from the ridge. Now they could see it clearly. It's a ship, Samantha said in awe. They're building a ship. The structure was unmistakably a spacecraft, but unlike any Samantha had seen. It was grown rather than built, its hull a living thing. Tubes and tendrils connected it to the chamber walls. It pulsed with an inner light like a heartbeat. Not just a ship, Lyra said, studying the structure. A bioweapon delivery system, look. She pointed to pods along the ship's sides. Those are launch tubes. Once in orbit, it could rain down bioweapons on a planet's surface. Earth, Samantha said. They're planning to attack Earth. A sound from behind made them turn. A group of harvesters had entered the tunnel. They hadn't seen the trio yet, but they would soon. This way, Octavia whispered, pointing to a narrow crevice in the wall. They squeezed through just as the harvesters passed by. The crevice led to a smaller chamber. Here they found something that made Octavia gasp. Humans and other species were suspended in the walls, partially absorbed into the resin material. Tubes connected their bodies to the larger structure. Living components, Lyra said, horrified. They're using living beings as parts of the ship. Octavia moved to one of the figures. A woman, still recognizable despite being partially absorbed. Kira, she whispered. My friend. She's still alive. Kira's eyes opened slowly. They were cloudy, unfocused. Octavia. Her voice was weak, barely audible. I'm here, Octavia said, tears in her eyes. We'll get you out. Samantha examined the resin holding Kira. It's too integrated with her body. We can't remove her without killing her. We have to do something, Octavia insisted. Lyra studied the other captives. There must be dozens of them, all connected to the ship. She closed her eyes, using her empathic ability. They're not just power sources. They're a control system. Their minds are being used to guide the ship. Can you connect with them? Samantha asked. I can try. Lyra placed her hands on the resin wall near Kira. She concentrated, her face tense with effort. There's a network. All their minds linked together. And something else. A controlling influence. The Terrians? Samantha suggested. No, something else. Something that was here before. The original harvesters were designed to be controlled remotely, but they've evolved, developed their own group consciousness. Lyra's eyes snapped open. They're using the Terrian equipment, but they're not following Terrian orders anymore. They have their own plan. A commotion outside drew their attention. More harvesters had entered the main chamber. With them were two figures that weren't harvesters. They wore environmental suits with Terrian markings. Terrian scientists, Lyra whispered. They're here to check on their project. The scientists were examining the organic ship, taking samples and making notes on handheld devices. They seemed unaware of the true nature of what was happening. We need to warn them, Lyra said. They don't know the harvesters have evolved beyond their control. Why should we warn them? Octavia asked bitterly. They created these monsters. They deserve whatever happens to them. If the harvesters launch that ship, millions of innocent humans will die, Samantha pointed out. We need to stop it no matter who gets warned in the process. Lyra nodded. There should be a control system, something the Terrians use to communicate with the harvesters. If I can access it, maybe I can use my ability to disrupt the network. They watched as the Terrian scientists moved to a portable console they had set up near the ship. They typed commands and parts of the ship responded, pulsing with brighter light. The ground shook beneath their feet as Samantha, Lyra, Octavia, and the two Terrian scientists hurried through the tunnels. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling. Warning lights flashed along the walls. A computer voice spoke in multiple languages, counting down to destruction. 15 minutes to facility collapse, the voice announced. We need to move faster, Samantha urged, supporting Lyra, who had grown weak after her connection with the Harvester network. I'm trying, Lyra said, her breath coming in short gasps. Using her empathic ability so deeply had drained her strength. They reached the maintenance shaft that led back up to the communication tower. Samantha checked her scanner. The tower is still stable, but not for long. The collapse will reach it soon. Octavia pushed one of the Terrian scientists toward the ladder. You first. Start climbing. The scientist climbed with Octavia following close behind, making sure they didn't try to escape. Samantha helped Lyra onto the ladder. Can you make it? Lyra nodded weakly. I have to. They climbed as quickly as they could. The shaft trembled with each new rumble from below. Metal groaned as the structure strained against forces it was never designed to withstand. 10 minutes to facility collapse, the computer voice announced. When they finally reached the hatch leading to the control room, they found it jammed. The earlier damage from the harvesters had warped the metal frame. Samantha braced herself on the ladder and pushed with all her strength. The hatch moved slightly but wouldn't open fully. Help me, she called to the others. Together they pushed against the hatch. With a screech of metal, it finally gave way. They climbed into the control room to find it in shambles. The harvesters had torn apart the barricade and smashed much of the equipment. The console they had used to send the distress signal was damaged but still partially functioning. Samantha went to it immediately. I need to boost our signal. The interference from the planet's atmosphere is too strong. While Samantha worked on the console, Octavia checked outside. No sign of harvesters. They must have gone back to the hive. Lyra sat heavily in a chair, her skin paler than normal. They knew what was coming. They returned to die with their ship, with their dream of going home. One of the Terrian scientists watched her with curiosity. You really connected with them, didn't you? You felt what they felt, Lyra nodded. They weren't monsters. Not really. They were victims just like us. 7 minutes to facility collapse, the computer voice warned. Samantha hit the console in frustration. It's not working. The transmitter is too damaged. What about the tower itself? Octavia suggested. It's basically one big antenna. Could we use it directly? Samantha considered this. Maybe. If we could connect my scanner to the tower's main transmission array, we might be able to boost our signal enough. Where is this array? Asked Lyra. At the top of the tower, Samantha replied. We'd have to climb all the way up. Another violent tremor shook the room. A crack appeared in one wall, spreading quickly across the ceiling. We don't have time to reach the top, Octavia said. Lyra stood up, swaying slightly. There's another way. She pointed to the damaged console. The tower has a defense system. It was designed to call down orbital strikes. If we could activate it, it would send a powerful signal to orbit, Samantha finished. Possibly strong enough for the Artemis to detect. But we'd need the access codes, Octavia said. All eyes turned to the Terrian scientists. The older one shook his head. I don't have those codes. They're classified military information. Lyra approached him, her eyes intense. You're lying. I can feel it. The scientist backed away. Stay out of my mind, aberration. 5 minutes to facility collapse, the computer announced. We don't have time for this, Samantha said. She pointed her empty rifle at the scientist. He didn't know it no longer worked. The codes now. The scientist hesitated, then sighed. Even if I give them to you, it won't matter. The system requires Terrian DNA authentication. None of you can use it. I'm Terrian, Lyra reminded him. You're an aberration. Your DNA has been flagged as corrupted in all Terrian systems. Lyra looked at Samantha. What about human DNA? Could that work? The scientist laughed. Of course not. The system is designed specifically to keep other species out. But Lyra wasn't listening to him anymore. She was looking at Samantha's environmental suit, specifically at a tear in the sleeve where blood had dried around a cut on Samantha's arm. Your blood, Lyra said. Let me see your wound. Confused, Samantha rolled up her sleeve, revealing a gash on her forearm. It was healing but still fresh enough that blood welled up when Lyra touched it. What are you doing? Samantha asked. Lyra didn't answer. She pressed her fingers to Samantha's wound, coating them with blood. Then she went to the console and placed her bloody fingertips on the DNA scanner. Access denied, the console displayed. Non-Terrian DNA detected. It was worth a try, Octavia said dejectedly, but Lyra wasn't finished. She closed her eyes, concentrating. Her empathic ability had always let her sense others' emotions, but since coming to this planet, it had grown stronger. On the Harvester ship, she had connected directly with the neural network. Now she tried something even more difficult. She focused on the cells in Samantha's blood that still clung to her fingers. She tried to feel them, to understand them at a molecular level. 3 minutes to facility collapse. Lyra, what are you doing? Samantha asked, concerned by Lyra's intense concentration. Human DNA, Lyra murmured. It's fascinating, so adaptable, so resilient. Her fingers began to glow faintly where Samantha's blood touched them. There's something in it. Something that resonates with my own mutation. The Terrian scientist watched in horror. Impossible. She's attempting DNA assimilation. That's a theoretical ability only. What does that mean? Octavia demanded. It means she's trying to temporarily incorporate human DNA into her own cellular structure. It's never been successfully done. Lyra's entire hand was glowing now. Sweat beaded on her forehead. She placed her hand back on the scanner. Processing, the console displayed. Then partial match detected. Security override, enter authorization code. The scientist stared in shock. It worked. Partially, at least. The code, Samantha insisted, pressing the empty rifle against his chest. The scientist finally relented, typing a long sequence into the console. The screen changed, showing a schematic of the tower and the defense system. Defense system activated. Target designation required. 2 minutes to facility collapse. Lyra, still connected to the console through her glowing hand, spoke weakly. I can sense the targeting system. It's designed to strike from orbit. But we can reverse it. Make it send a signal up instead of calling destruction down. She began typing with her free hand, reconfiguring the system. The console beeped in protest several times, but she continued, pushing through the security protocols with a combination of the scientist's codes and her modified DNA. What are you targeting? Samantha asked. The Terrian research outpost on the dark side of the planet, Lyra replied. The one they thought no one knew about. The source of all this suffering. The scientist tried to pull her away from the console. You can't. You'll expose everything. Octavia held him back. That's exactly what we want. 1 minute to facility collapse. The console screen showed a satellite view of the planet. A targeting reticle moved across the surface, settling on a location on the far side. A hidden base built into the mountains. Target locked, the console announced. Firing solution calculated. Now we just need to invert the signal, Lyra said, typing more commands. Turn the weapon into a beacon. The tower began to hum. Energy flowed through its structure, building toward release. Outside, the sky darkened as storm clouds gathered, drawn by the electromagnetic buildup. 30 seconds to facility collapse. The console screen flashed red. Warning, system overload imminent. Power surge detected. It's working, Lyra said, her voice barely audible. The signal is broadcasting. But the power drain... She collapsed, her strength finally giving out. Samantha caught her before she hit the floor. Lyra's hand was burned where it had connected with the console, but she was still breathing. We need to get out of here now, Samantha said. The tower's going to collapse with the rest of the facility. They ran for the exit, Samantha carrying Lyra. Outside, the ground was breaking apart. Fissures opened in the earth as the underground facility began its final collapse. The tower swayed dangerously above them. Run! Octavia shouted, pushing the Terrian scientists ahead of her. They sprinted away from the tower across the broken ground. Behind them, the tower's hum reached a crescendo. A burst of energy shot upward from its tip, a brilliant blue beam that pierced the storm clouds. The ground gave way beneath the tower. It tilted, then began to fall. The collapsing underground facility created a massive sinkhole that swallowed the tower and everything near it. The group ran until they couldn't run anymore. When they finally stopped and looked back, a huge cloud of dust marked where the tower had stood. The ground continued to shake for several minutes, then gradually grew still. Did it work? Octavia asked, catching her breath. Did the signal get through? Samantha checked her helmet readouts. I don't know. We can only hope. Lyra stirred in Samantha's arms. Her eyes fluttered open. The ship, she whispered. Gone, Samantha told her gently. Everything collapsed.